So, testing, one, two, three. So, I'm out here in the rain to talk to you a little bit about gun control in America. Of course, because I live here in the UK, I often talk to people here about guns in America, and the question that people often have is, why do we love guns so much in America? It's clear that the passion that lobbyists and vocal citizens express for a very relaxed gun control, it's clear A, that it's a conservative agenda, and B, that it's there's something there more than just, there's something that needs to be sort of interrogated in the word freedom and liberty, to protect themselves, because those are the words that gun advocates use. Now, and the Second Amendment being, fundamental to that, so linking all of these things to our identity as Americans. So what is that identity of freedom that people talk about? So you have to ask yourself, of course, who are they afraid of? Who will attack them? Now, one journalist might say, okay, as much as there are gun advocates, there is no gun advocate who would say, okay, so if someone goes to a gun shop or gun show in one of those very liberal states, gun liberal states, where they can actually buy and obtain a gun within a few hours without a background check or with minimal background check, and they say, okay, so I'm a fan of Osama bin Laden. I love Al Qaeda, and I'm going to support them by hurting as many Americans as I can. I'd like to buy a gun so I can go to some school and shoot them up. Should that gun owner or seller sell to that person? Well, most gun advocates and gun control advocates would say absolutely not. I could give you another example. If someone says, I'm a member, I believe that these niggers is taking over, and these spics and all these Arabs that come over here, we got to take this country back. You see what they did to Mitt? They all ganged up on him and voted and got out there because they just didn't want the white man to have anything, and they're too lazy to work, and at the same time they want, all this social spend. They want gifts from the government, as Mitt said. And so when you have gun control linked to freedom to protect ourselves from those groups of people that I just sort of gave you, the boogeyman, the Arab, or the inner city Negro, we're talking about a passion about that. We're still talking about implicit bias, again, about people and about who the scary person is. Because the KKK person who thinks like that is a complete terror to me, and it might be a reason for someone who looks like me to buy a gun. But the reality is, unmasked people are not. It's the people who will go to the gun show and say those things, and the gun seller might be in agreement with them. So there is an element of whiteness in our passion for guns, in wanting to buy guns and wanting to keep guns free, and sort of stopping any conversation about meaningful gun control by pointing out this freedom, and then this implicit language around there's a boogeyman. The boogeyman comes in, the scary Arab stuff, and then also the scary, look at it, they want gifts, they want welfare. And so we're talking about illegal immigrants, so-called and so-called inner city people. And it's important that looking at inner city people, because you look at Chicago, there were 26 people killed in this recent shooting in a school, in an elementary school. 26 people died in one night in gang and street violence in Chicago in one night. But we don't have outrage about that. We've had, before Columbine, the rate of death by guns in inner cities around the country, targeting young black men in particular, black and brown men in particular, has always been much higher. But we got meaningful movement when people in Columbine got shot. When the people who are victims of gun violence look like the people who are A, lawmakers, B, the conservative majority voice, so white people. When white people get shot up, we get movement. When brown and black people get shot up, we hadn't even heard about this. And so we have to look at how irrational it is, and we see that this sub-narrative of the boogeyman is always with us, and it carries over into this gun control and the fiscal cliff that we're leading into now at the end of the year. The fiscal cliff is arguing about to tax or to not tax the 1%. They're not even talking about redistributing funds from military spending to education, from military spending to universal health care, all things that are quite minor when you look at the numbers and what it costs to, beef up Social Security, to have universal health care. These things are minor expenses compared to the boogeyman and the scare of the boogeyman, the going to war to conquer some, dark demon. Those are the expenses at home that would take care of the people who are in inner cities, who are struggling in context of violence and an entire climate of violence, be it from the police, be it through themselves. It would take less to deal with those issues, the social issues, than to continue this scare of the boogeyman, and how it divides us. It means that we can't really move forward in a radical way on one side, but then also uses this fear to control majority whites into thinking, well, there is some boogeyman that we have to be against them, so they define themselves against this dark other. So, I mean, it's like what white means is not just white pride or being proud of contributions of white people, European descent, but being against something else. And that being against something, that negative, that fear always feeds our negative desires. And that's what we get. So we get lack of gun control and kids getting shot up and decaying inner cities that, produce this chronic poverty and climate of violence. So we get that, and it goes on and on and on. It's self-perpetuating. And so even I would say in the media, when they report on, these tragic gun incidents and then this fiscal cliff, they fail to even link how, social spending and a climate of violence are linked. And that's part of how, because they polarize the topics, they polarize the subjects, such that, well, we're talking about guns, and these people say this, and these people say this, and so we're moving on. We're talking about, social spending, and so these people say this, and these people say this, and there's never any discussion about what their motivations are. And so we never really see how much the 1% is behind galvanizing masses of whites to be conservative, as opposed to thinking more critically and negotiating and building coalitions, which I would more so say is at the heart of the American project.